Have you ever had a gut feeling that turned out to be spot on or felt a whisper of guidance you couldn't quite explain? What if that wasn't just intuition? What if it was your spirit trying to have a full-on conversation with you? Yep, your spirit is talking, and after today's conversation, you'll want to start listening. We are honored to welcome back Christine Lang, the brilliant medical intuitive energy healer and spirit translator who's been helping people across the world understand the messages their spirit is sending them. Christine's newest book, Ask Your Spirit, Receiving Life-Changing Wisdom from Your Elevated Intelligence, is like a direct line to your inner guidance system. Whether it's physical symptoms, career confusion, or relationship chaos, Christine helps you decode what your spirit's been trying to tell you all along. Get ready to rethink the way you make decisions, understand your body, and move through your life with clarity. This is the conversation your soul has been waiting for. Hi, Christine.
Hi,
Hi.
Christine.
So happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, it's always so great to see you. You are such a ray of light every time you come.
Oh, thank
Great big
you.
smile. This new book is so exciting. Robin and I have just loved reading it. But
Oh,
before we get into the book, for those who may not have listened to the prior podcast with you, just
yeah.
talk a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So I describe myself as a spirit channel and a medical intuitive. And I was a young lawyer with horrific allergies and just determined to find a cure. And in my search for a cure for the allergies, discovered I have the ability to see people's energy and hear their spirit, as well as hear my own spirit and guides. So for almost 30 years now, I've been acting as a translator for the spirit world, helping people understand the why behind events in their life, the why behind repeat relationship patterns, and especially the why behind chronic physical symptoms. So their spirit will help them understand how their symptoms are actually trying to guide them to see limiting beliefs, to drop fears they don't need anymore, to make their life better. And it's just an honor to be able to be part of that aha moment for people every day. And I teach people to do that for themselves, do healing work, and to hear their spirit. And I realized at some point I'm going to retire, and I really want to just write this book to put myself out of business so that everyone can hear their spirit for themselves and be able to channel for themselves.
Yeah, and what Karen and I can't get over is you offer all of these other aspects of what you do. So whether that's small group, one-on-ones, course, you have other books. So we knew you were in the midst of writing this book and had no idea what else could you help us with, really. And you've created such a gift and a guidebook for all of us, as you said, to put yourself out of business at some point, because it really does. So how did this come to you and this idea of elevated intelligence? What does that mean? How does it differ from intuition?
It came to me because a couple of years ago, and I'd been on a pretty large podcast, and I opened up my calendar, and within half an hour, we were booked out for the whole year. And I was like, okay, stop, close the calendar down. And then all these people were upset they couldn't get in. And my spirit said, well, now you have to write a book with this idea of putting yourself out of business. It can take people several years to get really proficient at channeling their spirit, but they need to start, and you need to give them step-by-step tools. And my first thought was, oh my God, there's a million books out there in this genre, and I've written one, right? So there's a bunch of stuff out, and my spirit said, but there's this concept of elevated intelligence that I want you to bring forward, which is the idea of intuition is a nudge from the spirit world. It's something without logically being able to explain how you know it, but we don't know. It could be from one of your guides or your spirit or your son's spirit, right? And we get these intuitive nudges for sure, but elevated intelligence is combining your spirit's wisdom with your own life experience and your own intellect. So it's that combo of the three. And my spirit drew me this picture of a triangle and said, you have organic intelligence, what you're all used to working with, like what you learned in school and things you've memorized. And then you have AI, which is artificial intelligence meant to augment your organic intelligence. But if you picture a pyramid or a triangle, and at the top would be elevated intelligence, which is how you combine all of that with your spirit's guidance.
That's brilliant.
And my spirit will say, yeah, go take that thing you just wrote and put it in Chat GPT with this prompt, and it'll just completely polish what I need. And I was like, oh, that's good. So the idea is I want to give people an edge beyond just AI, which is great. I use AI all the time, but to be able to combine my understanding and my intuition and my spirit's wisdom and AI The corporate executives that I'm working with, the moms that I'm working with, they're just flying through their issues and healing so quickly because they're like, now I feel like I've got all the tools in my toolbox.
And you're right. And it's so smart because so often I feel like we're always forcing ourselves to think about spirit and body and spirit in our 3D life, as we like to call it,
Right.
as different things. And the way you approach this book is beautifully integrating them to find the meaning. So I
Oh,
love that you
thank
did
you.
that.
I think it's the lawyer in me. I'm so pragmatic and practical. If it doesn't yield real results, I don't care for just the woo, that's just the feel good. Oh, that sounds amazing. It doesn't do much for me. And so I always invite people to bring your healthy skepticism to it because if it doesn't stand up, it doesn't stand up. It has to produce results. And I've just learned from almost 30 years of channeling, nobody has your back like your spirit. So if you can tap into your spirit, of course you're going to get the best advice on relationships and health and career and fulfillment. That's the ticket. It's just being able to learn how to ask the questions, learn how to hear the answers. And that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah, and I think so many people that we talk to, a lot of seekers that are super new to the woo, as we like to
Yeah.
say, they really don't feel they can talk to their spirit. They feel that they need a conduit. So whether
Right.
it's us or any of the practitioners that are part of Seeking
Yeah.
Center, they feel they're going to know better than themselves. And I think with this book, especially with the way you've set it up, you are giving people that power back for themselves. And it's not to
Yeah.
say that it doesn't always, even all of us, sometimes it is fun to go to another practitioner and see what
Sure.
comes to, but at the end of the day, you know best. We have the
Yeah.
power within us. So why did you set up the book in the way that you did? Because it is so step by step, and it really does appeal to both a newbie or
Mhm.
someone who has been doing this for some time.
Like
Yeah.
me.
Thanks.
I,
Thanks.
I'm fascinated by how you're going to answer this because that's exactly how I felt. It was an aha for me to think, and it sounds almost crazy for me to say it out loud, but to ask my spirit, which is me. It's
Yeah.
not out there, it's in there. And it's so empowering because it makes you feel like you have this new invisible friend in a way.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
true. It's like our own version of AI within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
personalized AI. And I would say I wrote it because one of my goals was to get people to stop outsourcing their sovereignty.
Oh,
Oof, that's good.
quote of the day.
That is good.
And my spirit will sometimes refer to it as polling the audience, right? Where you've got somebody who I've asked my 6 different friends and they think I should buy this car because they don't trust their own. And especially with relationships, like you have one relationship that goes bad and now you don't trust your picker. How many clients have come to me? Oh, I have a bad picker. I'm like, no, you don't. That was the perfect relationship to teach you whatever you're supposed to learn there. And so this idea of regaining the trust in our own inner wisdom, that's what I want to plug people back into. And the setup for the book, I can't take really much credit for it. I channeled it, so my spirit gave it to me. But her thought was the first third of the book is your how to make the connection, how to hear your spirit, how to know when it's your spirit and not your ego mind, all the how to. And then the second 2/3 of the book, she entitled Your Relationship Manual, because now you have this new relationship with your spirit. What's the best way to work that relationship? Just like when you're in high school and you're like, how do you learn to date? How do you learn to flirt? This is this relationship manual that I have found that when you understand more about the topic, you ask more informed questions and it yields much better and more useful answers. I'm not looking for platitudes from my spirit of, oh yeah, your friend hurt your feelings. That was awful. I'm like, I don't have time for that. Tell me what to do. Tell me why it happened and what do I do about it? And so what my spirit said is the more background information I can give people about topics, about certain dynamics that happen in your body and in relationships and in your work, the better their questions will be, and then they'll get really good answers. And even in each chapter, I include 5 to 10 sample questions just to show you, like, here's how you'd frame a question.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
And
Talk
maybe
about, because that's so important.
and give, so people who haven't read the book yet, give an example of.
Okay. So, one of the reasons that I wrote those questions and talk about it so much is that if we back our spirit into a corner by saying, should I buy house A or house B? And really, your spirit knows house C is coming on the market tomorrow, and that's your house. So if you say to her, do I buy house A or B? She's going to back away and not answer your question. And when people come to me and say, my spirit quit, or my spirit won't answer my question, I'm like, I promise you it's in the asking of the question. It is not your spirit on the picket line. So when I ask her, how did you ask it? We can usually see our mind tends to break things down into this binary yes, no. Should I buy this vitamin C or not? It's not about not having vitamin C. It's about having the other brand. So learning to ask a question instead of should I buy house A or house B, if you say, what can you tell me about each of those houses? Your spirit would then say, they each have some good features, but there's one coming on the market tomorrow that's going to have the best of both of those. So it's in asking an open-ended question that isn't simply just tell me what to do. Because when people hear open-ended, they go, okay, when people start off a session, go, just tell me what my spirit wants me to know. Well, we don't have 6 years, so no. We want to narrow in our focus on what we're seeking insight on, but we want to ask the question in such a way that we give our spirit freedom to teach us, because we think we're so sure we know what will make us happy. If I just got that raise and if I could just get that one car, then I'd be happy. And our spirit actually knows much better than we do what would make us happy.
I mean, that is really transformative, Christine. I have to tell you, the way that you're able to put that is life-changing for people. I know it is for me. So I'm really grateful.
Oh, thank you. The analogy my spirit gave me many years ago was we are, not to diminish us, but we are like a toddler in that when we are so adamant and sure that we know what we want. And she said, picture a toddler who's cranky and tired, and they're like so tired they're just staggering around the living room. They don't even know what they want. You're like, I'm going to put this toddler down for a 2-hour nap. And the toddler cries, how could you leave me? I love you, mommy. All the things that sound legit to the toddler. And you have to hold that broader perspective, which is, I'm not abandoning you. I know you're sad. You have to take a nap, but the whole rest of your day and evening is going to be better because of this. And because our perspective is 10 times larger than the toddler's perspective, which is right in present moment, what feels good, immediate gratification. Like it or not, adults are immediate gratification too. I want this guy to call me back that I had a date with. And my spirit's like, no, you don't. You just think you do. So that understanding of, oh, here's how I'm being a toddler. My job is to not have the toddler temper tantrum, which sometimes I do. I'm pretty convinced this is the way this should go, universe. And she's like, I don't think so. So being able to, I call it spiritual humility, being able to have spiritual humility and go, I think this is what would make me happy, but maybe not. What can you tell me about this dynamic? What can you tell me about this situation? Then I actually get answers.
Yes. And what you said about how you are able in this book to outline so many different areas that people can relate to and are part of all of our lives in some way, you have broken it down. So your spirit, I will say, you were channeling that quite well.
Thank you.
And it's also clear how many experiences that you share with other people. I loved all the examples that you gave because there were so many that I totally related to. And I said, I would have asked that question, or I would have been confused by that as well. And I think you gave such clarity by those examples. The other thing I thought was really fun and funny was what you said about how long the answers from your spirit guide are good for.
Yes.
That they have expiration dates.
Yeah. When I was a younger healer and I was snarkier, I would say to people, they're like, how long is this information good for? And I'm like, oh, till as soon as you walk out the door. And they're like, what? But because so many things change, right? And people shift during a session. They're having these ahas, and then they're going to set up different boundaries. They're going to relate to their loved ones differently. And so things can shift. And the easiest place we see that is supplements, where, you know, when somebody comes online on Zoom for a session and says, okay, these are the supplements I've been taking. I'd like to do a supplement check. And I've been taking these for 9 years. I'm like, I can already tell you, we're past due on a lot of those getting gone. And we'll check things through, but it's hopefully we're each growing every single day. And it's impossible to have the same body you did 9 years ago. And it doesn't mean none of those supplements work, but there's a really good chance that as you're evolving, especially if you're on a spiritual journey, you're ascending and evolving pretty quickly. So what worked for you last year might not work for you right now, or what worked for you last month, right?
Yeah. And what I think you help to explain is how to start to discern what messages should you be paying attention to, and when is it time to just let it go?
Yeah. And people, I think we don't give ourselves enough credit for the little shifts that we make. Because we don't notice that, we don't think to check on things like, oh, should this boundary be the same? People kind of be like, oh, yeah, I just don't talk to my brother because 10 years ago he said this thing. And I'm like, who is he now and who are you now compared to where you were 10 years ago? It doesn't mean if he's a super toxic person, go engage with him, but to just recognize that we're all shifting and to feel into who am I now and what feels healthy and appropriate for me now.
That's important. And then one of your foundational practices is divine centering technique.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that and how someone can use that if they're in a moment of doubt or trying to make a decision?
Yeah, I was actually brought in to lead a retreat, a private retreat from about 60 women. And some things were happening and it was falling apart a little bit and different things were occurring. And I could just feel that there was a ripple effect going through the group. And some guides came to me and said, we're going to give you this technique and it's going to help everyone move into alignment with their soul. And you will feel the difference in the room and you will feel the difference in the whole group energy. And they said, it's these 3 sentences. And you say each one silently in your head. And you say each sentence until your body believes you before you move on to the next sentence. And what happens is as you're doing that, you quiet down your central nervous system and then you start bringing yourself into alignment with your spirit. So it was given to me to calm down the stress of a group and different things that were happening. And it was palpable. The women in the retreat were like, I can feel my blood pressure drop. I could feel my heart rate slow down. They became more intuitive. They were right there with me. And it was so magical. I'm like, oh, this is going in the book. So it became this foundational practice. And now I have clients who say, I use it 4 or 5 times a day because it gets me into such a place of alignment. It just turns on my intuition. So if I have to make a decision or if I'm nervous about, I've got to go in and fire this person or I've got to have this difficult conversation with my manager, doing that first just has you operate from your highest place of what you can access in terms of intuition right then. And a lot of times people get answers to their question like in the moment after they do this exercise. They're like, oh, because they just feel in their body as this intuitive knowing where to go next. And it's such a simple practice. And when you're used to saying the sentences multiple times, you can do it in less than 3 minutes. So for something to have that profound of an effect on people in less than 3 minutes, I mean, there's breathing techniques I find are powerful, but a lot of the breathing techniques, you're still wrestling with your mind. This is giving your mind something to do, is to say this phrase. And I just find it super powerful.
Yeah, I think it should be taught
Yes.
in schools.
And I think so often what happens in all these books that we read on similar subjects, they all have wonderful ideas and principles in them. But I think for somebody who might say, I don't know the first thing about asking my guide or my spirit anything. What are you talking about? Just having these very simple ways of grounding yourself so that you can be open to asking those questions and then leaning into doing what's next is that how-to I think people actually really need and are looking for.
Well, and it just makes, even if you don't do any of the meditation, the style that I teach, people say, oh, I did that and I'll do TM meditation or I'll do my mindfulness meditation. And I'm so much more aligned. Like my meditations are deeper and better.
I can see that. And how do people begin to decode messages from spirit? How does that work?
So I think even before you're hearing your spirit, right, and you're just like, people will just get a sense of, oh, I feel like that was a message, right? Whether the lights blinked or something's happening. The other day I was sending an email and I was frustrated about something and I go to hit send and all the power blinks and my computer goes off and I'm like, got it. Okay, let me rethink that. So sometimes it's an obvious message. You don't need it. But what I always say to start with is how your body feels, how your emotions feel, how your central nervous system feels. And in general, when a message comes from your spirit, it floats in like a cloud because there's no urgency. You don't have to believe this. Your spirit isn't invested in, no, you got to do it exactly this way. So I always say the messages from our spirit come in effect saying, this is simply what is. And the messages from our ego mind come in like an arrow because there's always urges. I got to buy cat food on the way home. Oh, I forgot to call that guy back. Oh, I got anything that could have possibly an exclamation point at the end of a sentence or just has even a sense of, I really need to remember to do this. That urgency or sense of it is fear, which tells us it's from the ego mind. And so noticing when a message, when I'm sitting here wondering, is that a message from my spirit or my ego mind? I will say, does my chest contract or expand open? Do I lean forward? Oh my God, I got to jump on that. Or do I just take a deep breath and sigh, right? So I pay attention to the emotions and the body movement and how my energy feels. And all of those start cluing you in on, first of all, was a message from your ego mind or your spirit. And it doesn't mean my ego mind doesn't have a valid point. I might need to buy cat food, but I don't necessarily need to have it with that sense of urgency, right?
So true. And then speaking of the body,
Yeah, I love the chapters where you start talking about symptoms. And this goes into your practice too, Christine. So
Sure.
we had a ton of examples of this, but how your symptoms are really messages of maybe things that you need to learn, experiences that are coming to you. How do you tell people to interpret those? How do you explain as they're tuning in and asking their spirit? How do they look for those within themselves?
Somebody asked me the other day, was every symptom a message from your spirit? I'm like, no, if I get up and I'm not paying attention and I trip on the stair and I twist my ankle, that's my message is don't be clumsy, but it's pay attention. But it's chronic symptoms, especially symptoms that Western medicine either doesn't have a cure for, or the cure has lots of side effects, or things that like migraines, back pain, eczema, all the kinds of things that people wrestle with, right, on an ongoing basis. Those always have an emotional component. Now, whether the message of it is 98% of it or 50% of it, thorough healing is still going to include understanding what that's about. Because our body's job is to represent a physical, solidified manifestation of our thoughts and our beliefs and our emotions. So if you've got a chronic symptom, that is a little flag. It's a little message. It's the email that comes in with the blinking red exclamation point, right? It's something that's saying you should pay attention to this. And people say, what's my lesson? I'm like, it's not always necessarily a lesson. It's that your spirit is trying to help you and has enlisted your body to do it. And that help is guidance. It's coaching in relationships, in your health, in your career, in your sense of fulfillment, in how negatively you talk to yourself, in all the misbeliefs you have about how bad you are at math, or how bad you are at relationships, or how bad you are at public speaking. All of those lies that we will tell ourselves end up as creating incongruencies in the body's energy. And so then the body tries to say, hey, it's like the little grain of sand that makes the oyster and the pearl, like, hey, you should look at this. This is funky and it doesn't belong here. And so when we get the message, like for me, my allergies ended up being about my negative self-talk and how I would beat myself up because I was a perfectionist and I was used to being a straight A student. And that got me into a really good law school, but I was in law school with people from Harvard and Yale and Columbia. I was not the smartest person there by a long shot. And so all of a sudden I went from A student to B student or C plus student on a bad day. And I had such this negative internal critic 24/7. I was literally allergic to how I was talking to myself.
wow.
And my spirit gave me a visual of the jockey whipping the racehorse that was already running its heart out. And so that didn't mean my allergies went away the next day. It took months and months. But each time my allergies would flare, I would go, what was I just saying to myself? Oh, yeah, that is pretty harsh. And it got to the point within a year and a half where the inside corner of my right eye would itch. And I would say, what was I just saying? You're right. That was harsh. And so by the end of that whole period, I no longer have allergies. Even when the pollen count is crazy, I'm the one not sneezing. I don't have any allergies, but I have completely transformed how I talk to myself. And that's actually more valuable to me than not taking allergy meds. And that's my model for what I'm looking for my clients is let's get rid of those symptoms, but have that transformation. I had a second session the other day with somebody and she had chronic like interstitial cystitis pain, which is, this feels like this recurring bladder infection. She'd been dealing with it for years and years. And after our first session, when she realized how much she was making herself wrong for her first marriage ending, I saw her 2 months later and she said, I have not had a symptom since. That is just magic. And she said, but this morning, a new chronic symptom came up. It comes up for me every couple of years, and here it is back. And I'm like, great, that's the next one to work on. That's the next message you're ready to work through, the next wound you're ready to correct. So that she applied those lessons so well that her spirit gave her that when she started to run an old tape about how she wasn't good at relationships, she stopped, corrected herself. She said, I feel like this little twinge of an ache in my body. And I'd be like, you're right, I'm doing it again. And she stopped herself. So she had this amazing transformation, both physically, but just as important, mentally and emotionally.
It really helps people look at those physical symptoms in a whole new way.
And rather than being so quick, like even if you have a sore throat, right, just take a moment and think about, is there something I'm not saying that I really feel like I should be saying? Just take a minute and think about perhaps what that root cause could be, or what it could be, as you say, like trying to show you, or what your spirit's trying to show you in that symptom.
For me, the first step is to shift from being critical of our body to being curious. Because when we're critical, we're like, ugh, not another thing. And especially by the time we're over 40, most of us are like, oh my God, because we've been raised to see the body like this bio machine that's an old car where parts keep falling off and breaking down. And we just have to keep taping it back together. And so by the time we're in our 50s or 60s, we really are quick to exasperation and fear and desperation about our body. And so there's this, oh no, not another thing that's gone wrong approach. And that critical nature or hopelessness idea closes us down to any message that's coming through because we're busy judging. And when we can get curious instead, we open up. And I always picture like a satellite dish in the front of myself. Okay, bring me the information, bring me all the goodies that this thing is about.
I really hope people can really see that. That again, it will change the way you are listening to your body and then feeling overall.
And yeah, how either you feel like you're besieged by symptoms and you can't trust your body, or you and your body are in partnership. And if you join my email list, there's a free guided meditation that walks you through getting a message from a chronic symptom. I just want to give that away for free. Here it is.
And you break a lot of that down in the book too, in the back of the book.
Yeah, in the appendix, there's a whole list of here are things, messages that are frequently contained within these common symptoms. But people are amazed that even though they've never heard their spirit, never had that conversation, they can do that guided meditation and go, oh, I actually got what this was about. I don't have all the answers, but now I know this is about the argument I had with my sister last year that I thought was resolved. Clearly it's not. And then they can journal and do different things to work it through. But having the ability to be in conversation with your spirit, with your body, it's a game changer.
Yeah, I think too, for people who may be going to those countless doctor's appointments too, who doctors just can't find anything. That is a really good opportunity to go, okay, maybe I've eliminated all of the terrible things that could have been wrong. And maybe there is something more. It's my body giving me a message to look into my emotional or baggage and thoughts and experiences from the past that I'm still carrying around and are just wedged in that part of my body. So it just gives people a whole opportunity to look at those symptoms or experiences in a different way.
I think most of us, if I say, what are the weak areas of your body or where you store stress? People say, oh, my stomach or my low back, or I get headaches. So a lot of us have an awareness of where we tend to store stress. And I would say a boss can walk into the office and scream and yell about last month's sales numbers, and you get a stomach ache, and the lady next to you gets a headache, and the guy next to you gets low back pain. Same stimulus, the guy's yelling, and how you internalize stress will determine where you get symptomatic from it. And so understanding that about yourself lets you know, oh, how do I internalize stress? What do I make it mean about me or about the world or about how untrustworthy people are or how unfair the universe is or whatever those things. And once we know that, then the toothpaste is out of the tube. You can't unknow that. And you have a way of looking at yourself more objectively to begin to start tuning into those things.
Definitely. And then let's talk a little bit about the relationship manual part of the book. And there's so much because, as you said, it's like, how do we then start to integrate this idea of asking in all these different areas of our lives? And is there one aspect that we can touch on? I know one of the ones that really spoke to me was this idea of a toxic friendship pattern.
And I think even if in the toxic, so a lot of those I divide into 3 different chapters. So the toxic friend could be competitive, they could be critical, they could be the helpless friend that you're always having to bail out of one situation after another. So I tried to see the things that I see most often in my practice. I think I've probably seen 20,000 clients now over these years. And so I try to like, okay, what are the largest categories that things fall into? And whether it's a critical friend or a critical parent or a critical sibling, the energy is the same, right? It feels diminishing, it feels awful. And so the same rules can apply. And I wanted to write about those things so that we don't just go to our spirit and say, oh my God, why is my sister such a jerk? That we can actually say, okay, I understand these are the reasons why people are typically critical, or these are the reasons why people are typically competitive with me. And again, you're asking those questions in a way that you're more open to answers. You're not just looking for your spirit to collude with you that Susie is a jerk.
Sometimes you are.
It feels good in the moment, but it doesn't get us very far. And so having that understanding of how do those events happen? How do those dynamics start? Because nobody says, I want to be in a relationship where the other person has all the power, or I want to be in a relationship where I'm the critical one. So how do those dynamics evolve or devolve into those messy ones? It's really helpful in asking those questions. So with the competitive friend, being able to ask, how do I play into that? How do I either start off competitive conversations or how do I ramp up? Understanding the role you play, right? So the chapters are meant to give enough background information from the universe's perspective. It's an amalgam of what thousands of people's spirits have said on that topic. This is how we see the critical friend or parent or sibling evolve. This is how and why we see the competitive person or the super needy person. We understand, oh, the super needy person who's always in crisis and always either is enjoying the drama of it or doesn't have enough confidence in themselves and they think they always have to be bailed out. So they're constantly eliciting their next savior. And then what do you get out of that? Oh, you get to be the rescuer and you get to be the hero. And if you're not feeling that confident, that might feel good. So it's addressing both sides of the dynamic. So then you ask the intelligent questions.
And you talk a lot too about relationships being those kinds of teachers as well. You're the people who keep asking, oh, I have the same relationships over and over again. Why is that, Spirit? I'm asking you to bring this wonderful person. And initially they seem wonderful and then they're not so wonderful after that. Can you just talk about that and what maybe some of those opportunities are?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when people say to me, I feel like I'm dating the same guy, or I feel like I'm dating the same woman, it has to do with their subconscious beliefs about relationships and about power dynamics and about love and how healthy it is and what it will cost you. If I said to you, without even thinking, just tell me the top 5 things that a good relationship will cost you, people are like, oh, nothing. And I'm like, no, just write the answers you're afraid are true. And people are like, oh, and they'll start writing stuff and they don't even realize they're holding that in their subconscious. And so then they keep replaying that out in their relationships because they're attracting other people who believe the same thing.
Wow.
Or the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
Yes. So in that situation, how do you work with your spirit to help guide you through that experience?
So first, I would ask my spirit to help me start flipping the script. Your ego will find evidence of whatever you're looking for. If your street is flat and you walk outside, you're like, looks like the earth is flat to me. As far as I can see, it looks flat, right? So we can find evidence of whatever we're looking for. We call it confirmation bias. And so when people are looking for evidence of, but I've tried dating all these different people and it's always the same thing, they're going to subconsciously keep noticing that, drawing it to themselves. So I would say train your ego to notice the not that. So you're looking for examples out in the world of, let's say you believe that men are only attentive in the beginning in the honeymoon phase and then they just never are. Start looking for examples of the 70-year-old couple where the guy holds the door for his wife and puts his hand in the small of her back or puts his hand on her shoulder and says, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you? Or something that's tender. Start gathering those pieces of evidence and then your ego's theory starts to fall apart. And now it just becomes, instead of this is how all men are, it becomes a sometimes. As soon as it's a sometimes, you just choose another category. Oh, I don't want to shop in that category anymore. I'm going to be over here.
That's awesome. That is really helpful.
It's looking for evidence that your theory isn't 100%. It's just a sometimes.
Yeah. And it's also looking outside of yourself because I think so often the self-blame comes in that, oh, I keep attracting that wrong person. And so you think that's your perpetual behavior, even though that's not what you want to have happen. But it's what we always say is look for what you want and focus on what you want. And you focus on grows.
And when people say to me, what am I doing wrong? Because I keep picking the wrong person. I would say, let's shift from what am I doing wrong? Because we just collapse in on ourselves with that idea. Look for it as what am I misunderstanding that has me drawing in the wrong person of myself? I'm putting out a bat signal I'm not even intending to put out. How am I doing that? And again, then you're asking, that's that spiritual humility because people are like, I'm doing all the right things. And the universe only sends me this kind of person. They only send me the guys that are already taken it. They only send me this. And I'm like, no, that's your ego looking for evidence of ain't it awful. And as long as we're singing the ain't it awful story, the universe is like, here's 20 more examples. We found them for you. It's like the dog that keeps bringing you the dead squirrel. You're like, you have a big reaction every time I bring you a dead squirrel. If you just step over and ignore it, the dog will stop bringing those to you. So our ego is the same way. It gathers evidence of whatever theory we're afraid is true.
Yeah, that's so true. For someone who is starting out, this idea of awareness in that kind of way is really important because understanding the ego and what is the ego is so key so that you can start to sift
Yeah, exactly. And I think that just making ourselves wrong doesn't get us anywhere. It just has us sort of stop in our tracks. So having that gentle guidance from your spirit is meant to be this partnership that sees you through and gives you the whys. To me, maybe it was the lawyer in me, like I used to like, put people's clients up on the witness stand and grill them. Well, why is this happening to her? Well, why did she get fired? Well, why is it right? In my spirit, I'd be like, slow down. So I had to learn how to respectfully ask those questions. But I still think one of the most vital, important parts of being able to have conversations with your spirit is this ability to understand the why behind events. Why did I get fired from my first job at 20? Why did this happen? Why did that guy next to me say that comment and have it bother me for so many years? And when we can start to understand that, then we see that the universe isn't random.
1,000%.
That's the game changer. Things are happening for you, not to you.
That's right.
And we can hear that phrase and go, oh, yeah, that sounds nice in theory. But man, it's hard not to fall into what I call the victim pit. When my car breaks down, when the thing happens, those things tend to throw us in the victim pit for some period of time. And I always say, make space for your humanness. Like you get to be upset if you get fired. People can't reach out to me and go, I used to have emergency sessions. I don't anymore. But I need an emergency session because I just got fired today, or I just got a diagnosis of this, and I don't want to have these two crowns in my teeth. And I'm like, we're not going to get it now because you're going to come at your spirit guns blazing. And no matter what your spirit says, you will not hear it.
So true. And you do have to allow yourself to feel.
Yeah, be the human, right? We have to make space for our humanness and have the righteous indignation of, I brush my teeth and floss twice a day. I should not have to have a crown. I get it. I understand that part. But that calming down to where our ego has its own humility and says, okay, I probably don't know the answer. Let me just step aside and make space to hear what's really going on now that I'm over my temper tantrum. If we refer back to the toddler example, right? We get to have our temper tantrum because we have human emotions and we live in this 3D world. So I make space for my humanness and then I decide, am I done being the toddler that's flailing on the floor of the grocery store? Am I ready to get up now? And maybe I'm not. Maybe I need another hour of that. And then I get over myself.
And I think the more you do this kind of work, and if you take the time and really do not just read this book, but put many of these things into action, so your recovery time is much quicker. So these things do happen. You do allow for that humanness to occur. I know I've had something very big happen in my life recently where I was so upset. And I said, and Kara knows, I said, I know I'm going to understand this soon. I know I'm going to understand this at some point. And I am so upset. I have to just let myself be upset and just be in that. And I did. But my recovery time from maybe this would have happened 5 or 6 years ago, it would have been a lot. I really wouldn't have understood it. And I'm still figuring it out. But point is, by doing this and that awareness is so key to know that it's part of a bigger picture. The universe has your back overall, and you can talk to your spirit.
And it shifts your energy immediately when you do that, right? Because it's like you were saying, Christine, it's like you're not perpetuating the negative. You're saying, okay, don't like that happened, or there's something to know here. What is it? And I keep thinking as you're talking about how my family's probably going to look at me even that I'm crazier than I already am, but how I'm going to start having these little sidebar conversations like, okay, spirit, what is it? But in a fun way. Looking for the potentiality of, in really ridiculously, sometimes very scary situations, there is something to know. And what is that versus leaning into the fear or leaning into the judgment?
Yeah. And I like to say that our spirits enroll us in these really crappy college classes sometimes that we're, oh, I heard that chemistry teacher sucks. I would never have put myself in that class, right? And sometimes we get this diagnosis and we're like, I didn't sign up for that. And your spirit's, I need you to be in that class for the next 9 months. It's going to be brutal. And in the end, people who have gone through the journey of cancer, and almost always they will tell me at the end, God, here are the things I learned. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but here are all the blessings. Here are all the things. And I always say, that's that shitty college class that your counselor put you in and you didn't want to be in, and you fought like a cat getting out of the bathtub the whole time. But it was something that overall led to your ascension, led to your soul's evolvement. And when I say to my spirit and client spirits, especially when I'm advocating for some of my clients, and I'm like, that seems harsh. Couldn't you have given her that lesson in an easier way? And Repeatedly, they say, we always choose the gentlest way possible that will cause that big shift we want. And that's a bitter pill to swallow, but I've seen it so many thousands of times. I believe it. And like Robin was saying, that you'll get pieces of information over the months and over the years. I had an event happen 20 years ago that was really upsetting, and occasionally I'll still get a little aha about it. And my spirit will say, remember that one during that one argument you were having with your friend about that incident, when she said, this is why it was a trigger for you. When you were 8, you heard your grandmother say this to your grandfather. And I'm like, oh my God. So there's these little pieces that can still come in when I'm ready to hear it, because it will really, as the lawyer, I just want all the information, thinking if I have every possible explanation, I'll feel better. And I've learned to trust my spirit. She'll share when she's ready. About 4 months ago, I got kidney stones, and I had my human righteous, because in the middle of Target, right, I'm running into their bathroom every 5 minutes thinking I must have a bladder infection. And I'm like just dying with pain. Called my doctor. She's like, no, that's a kidney stone. And 9 o'clock on a Friday night, I'm not going to go to the ER. I'm like, hell, I've been in this for 3 hours. I'm just going to pass it. And I did.
Ow, ow.
Once I knew what it was, I used energy to break it up and make it smaller, and it passed much faster, but it was still brutal. And the next day, my friends were like, oh my God, you talk to your spirit every day. Why didn't she tell you that was happening so you could use energy to break it up? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not even asking yet. I'm still licking my wounds, metaphorically and literally. I'm just recovering, and I'm just going to be gentle. And yeah, there's a part of me that wants to just cross my arms over my chest and go, thanks a lot, spirit. I talk to you every day. You couldn't tell me this was coming? Of course, that's the human reaction. And in the weeks since, she has explained to me what was occurring and why that was there for me. And one of the things she said is, everybody wants to know they're resilient and tough, but nobody wants to go through the experiences of actually knowing they're resilient.
Oh my goodness, so true.
And I was like, okay, but did it have to be like that? She goes, would you rather? Dental work, cancer, what, car accident? I'm like, no, never mind, never mind. But I'm still getting more layers about what was going on and what led up to it. And that calcification, and there was a couple ideas I was really holding on to and calcifying, right? Just like being rigid about them. And so understanding that information will come requires me to trust my spirit to dole it out when she knows I can actually use it, not just satisfy my righteous indignation.
Wow, that is huge. And I want to also say that one of the things that you also do in the beginning of the book is really help somebody understand how they will receive those messages. Because we all have a different way of receiving and understanding.
And could you just, for somebody listening who might be skeptical that they can hear, what would you say to them, Christine, for a newbie who's just trying to connect?
I would say that the way that we try to get messages is usually the way we won't. So when people see me be clairaudient and try to hear, their spirit starts giving them visuals, and they're like, I didn't hear anything. And I'm like, yeah, but your spirit's telling me you saw a bunch of things. Yeah, but I don't know what those are. I'm like, wait, tell me what they are. And they're like, oh, I get it. So you can be clairaudient, which is the hearing messages. You can have clairvoyance, which is seeing visuals, and it might be seeing colors or seeing a certain image. And then you can be clairsentient, which is having a knowing. And this is the one everyone gets, whether they like it or not, right? This is whether you describe it as a gut feeling, or I just had this intuitive hit, or I knew I shouldn't have taken that job, or I knew I shouldn't have gone on that second date, or whatever that was. That clairsentience we all have, because feelings are the first language of the soul. So your spirit is always going to speak to you first through emotion. But most of us, from the time we were in kindergarten, were taught to focus on the mental aspect of ourselves, and the emotional piece. I didn't have one class that said, here's why you feel this, right? We got no tutoring on feelings. And so we tend to just push them under the rug, and we'll push them to the back of our mind. And we might even say, I'll deal with that later. I'll process that when I get home from work, and later never comes, because we're stuck in this reactionary mode of just, now I got to go home and make dinner for the kids and get Johnny to soccer and whatever. So then we don't even remember that upset we had this morning, but your body remembers because you shoved it in there and said, I'll get to it later, and never did. And so when that stuff starts to accumulate, then we can get symptomatic. So I think that having that understanding of how it doesn't mean every time you have a weird emotion, you're like, I got to stop right now and process this. But there are times where I will just jot down on a piece of paper on my desk, like 2 or 3 words to just trigger me to come back later and ask, what was that feeling? Why, when this guy brought me this really lovely invitation to be on this really big podcast, why did I get a little bit of a stomach twist? Was that just my nervousness, or was that a warning? I want to be able to distinguish that. And I can't on the fly. especially if I'm having a conversation. So I'll make a note and I'm being self-honoring to me and to my spirit to pledge to go back later and sit with it.
It's so good. We covered so much.
It's because you guys asked the good questions.
Anything else in the book that you think is really important to know that we didn't ask?
I would say energy follows intent. It's one of the things I teach in my energy healing classes, in my classes where I'm teaching people to hear their spirit. It's energy follows intent. So the first thing to do is hold the intention to receive the messages. And so many people show up for the class unwittingly saying, I bet I'm the person who can't do it. I bet I'm the person who won't hear. And then they do take longer, right? Because they've got to get over that speed bump. And I get them there, but it takes longer because it's this self-imposed limitation from our own fear. I'll be the failure. And I've never had anybody yet who just never got a message from their spirit in 20,000 people. It's just because if you're alive and you're breathing, your spirit's right there with you, right? Ready to give you answers and eager to have that communication. And so that idea of holding the intent to be open to receive and give feedback, it just gets the ball rolling. And when I'm teaching in my energy healing classes, people say, I want to see energy. And I'm like, then just hold the intent and your brain literally starts making synapse connections to make that possible.
I love that. I'm going to do that.
Thank you for these reminders of how powerful we are and how we are not alone on this journey. I do forget, not often, but I forget that there is the spirit like right there who is willing to have this dialogue with me about any question that I have or anything that I'm worried about or experiencing, and to stop for a moment and pay attention to look for those messages. It's almost like tempting to give your spirit like a persona and a name.
And people will say, what's my spirit's name? And their spirit always looks confused. What are you talking about? I'm you, right?
I'm you.
It's your essence. But I get that. And if that helps you to relate, I certainly understand. But I had a male client who's the owner of a very large company. And he was saying, I feel like my spirit's really ready to talk to me all the time. And his spirit gave him a visual of the guy on the basketball bench going, put me in, coach, put me in, coach. He's like, I'm just waiting to help you. I'm waiting to help you. Just put me in the game. And so that visual, he said he refers to all the time because now he's just, here's my star player. And I keep leaving him sitting on the bench because I keep forgetting he's there.
Oh, that's a good one. And Karen, what you're saying too, it's we are not alone. We are in this, and the answers are within us. They're there and we can get them channeled through us.
Yeah.
And I think the other word too that's so key that you said, Christine, is trust. It's trusting ourselves, trusting spirit.
And it's hard to have trust in your spirit because it's a new relationship, right? Which is why I had a whole chapter about understand what your spirit's priorities are versus your ego's priorities. Right? Your ego wants to be comfortable all the time. And let's have everything go perfect all the time. And I always want to be happy. And what the spirit world says is that's really boring. And I'm like, I'm okay with boring for a few weeks. Give me some boring, right? But what they say is you don't go see movies that are just like the guy walks up a hill for the whole movie and he's just chattering away at the birds, right? You go see movies with drama and intensity and things that people overcome and the hero's journey. And the spirit world goes, us too. We want the same thing. Otherwise, we just stay in spirit form. And I'm like, okay, valid point, right? So
yes.
How do you navigate through it? You're like, okay, so this is what it is, but how do I navigate through it? And your spirit's like, this will be fun to get in there and help you do it, right? So understanding that, then it's not like I'm being tortured. And one more thing I'll say is that your spirit is really responsive to that idea of I feel so alone, because part of the mastery behind that divine centering technique is to bring you in alignment, not just with your spirit, but with the entire spirit world. And so what you will feel is that you don't feel so alone. Illness, getting fired, death in the family, these things feel so isolating because we're the only person we know in that moment who's experiencing it. And when you tap into that connection with your spirit and the whole spirit world, then you've got this whole team with you helping to hold you energetically where you are. And the first thing that disappears is your feelings of being alone. Big clap of thunder just happened when I said that, which feels like an exclamation point.
Yes. Christine, thank you for sharing all of this with us. And thank you for walking the walk. Because that's the thing, is that you are putting these things into practice, and we're never done on this trip. You can know all of this and you're still going to get kidney stones.
Yes. And I love the Richard Bach book where he talks about, you want to know how you're done? If you wake up tomorrow, you're not done. If you're still here, you're not done.
So true. And
absolutely.
And in addition to getting a copy of Ask Your Spirit, what are other ways people can work with you?
So once a quarter, roughly, I open up my calendar and sessions typically sell out in 15 minutes. So you want to be there right when the link comes through. And once or twice a month, I get a cancellation and I put it up on social media and it's usually gone that same day. But those are ways to get in and work with me privately. And then I have classes, both evening classes that are really inexpensive, that are just meant to give you a chance to channel, practice channeling and doing those sorts of things. I'm going to start teaching classes called Ask Your Spirit Training. That'll be a class like that where I'll help everybody meditate together and practice getting messages. And I just put out an online course called Ask Your Spirit Activation, where I have some guided meditations to help you hold your energy up and get messages. So I'm trying to just provide as many different ways for people to be able to hear their spirit. I teach energy healing classes called Intuitive Energy Healing, which is similar to Reiki, but from the start, I'm teaching people to hear their spirit, to give direction about where you put the energy and why. And so I'm teaching those periodically as well. And then I have something called the Healers Roundtable that just started, which is for healers to come in who've had a third attunement in intuitive energy healing or Reiki, and to be able to just have a safe place to practice and learn and get mentorship from me about, okay, if you get this message, how do you convey that to the client without freaking them out? Or if I hear this about my sister, how do I phrase that? And to understand, why would my spirit not tell me about this about my son? To be able to give those answers to build up our confidence in our relationship with our spirit is really like that trust factor. It's so important.
Oh my goodness. There's something for everyone, I think, that listens or watches Seeking Center. That's for sure.
It doesn't sound like you're going to be putting yourself out of business.
I am not anytime soon.
No.
Which is good for all of us.
It's good. I always say if I won the lottery tomorrow, my life would look exactly the same, because I love doing this work. But I also try to be realistic that I won't be doing it at 90, I'm guessing, maybe. So I want to start preparing people now. And I also like that ripple effect of the different therapists and acupuncturists and nurse practitioners that are coming to me now and going, oh my gosh, I'm so much more accurate now that I just meditate for 10 minutes before that client comes in, because nobody could figure out what's wrong with her. And I knew to run this test. I love that.
We love the evolution of all that you are offering to us. So thank you. And everybody should go to christinelang.org to find out all about everything we just talked about today and get your copy of Ask Your Spirit. Thank you, Christine.
Oh, thank you guys for having me.